Okay, excellent. We'll go ahead and get started this evening with our good news.
Okay. Well, just a few things for you there in your packet. I have the full list of all state participants that we mentioned that had come out right before last meeting, 21 participants. And even though we didn't get to have a festival this year, and even though the auditions were virtual, there's still a tremendous amount of work involved there, learning the music for the students, the singers alike. And I think sometimes when you do something virtually or not live, it's actually tougher. So very nice success there for our music programs. That's the first thing in there. Hopefully you saw some pictures online too. Something that the upper level world language classes and drawing and ceramic classes do every day or every year is a Day of the Dead celebration. Some really neat displays, a lot of Latin American themes, a lot of, comes out around Halloween, and so skulls are always prevalent there. But that's always kind of a neat thing to see. And then another kind of seasonal thing, the life skills class made corn husk dolls and used that as a teachable moment too, just to talk about how times have changed and how people of that time in the late 1800s, if you wanted a toy, you made it, that kind of thing, which that's a foreign idea kind of to kids today. One more thing I would add, I don't have pictures, I did put one on Facebook after the production, but kudos to the drama kids and the directors. I think anything we can do like that in this era and then do a great job with like that is noteworthy. And I went to the Sunday afternoon production of Clue, and very entertaining and definitely different, when you're sitting in a gym rather than a theater. I'm sure that was some challenges with sets, with sound, with lights, but we have a great theater crew. And even though the thespians were wearing masks, you could hear them, they were mic'd up, and it was a great show. So kudos to the kids and directors on a good show there.
Thanks, Art. All right, next we'll move on to our, let's see, anybody here?
I don't think so. Nope.
Go ahead and move over to the consent agenda.
I'm curious on the personnel. I see where I think it's our athletic director is going to be a volunteer coach. Isn't that unusual? I mean, isn't he supposed to supervise the whole thing?
Well,
To me, the question I'm wondering is this showing favoritism for one of the programs over others?
I did speak with Mr. Nelson about that. He came and checked and to see if it would be okay, and I did tell him he could. He understands there would be times if he has to go supervise another event, he's needed elsewhere. But I told him that if he was going to help at all, that he should go through the process. I think actually he's going to primarily be doing film breakdown, that kind of thing. So it's not going to be like he'll be at practice every night working with kids. But we do want all of our volunteer coaches, all of our paid coaches as well, to go through board approval. So I did have that conversation with him, and he wanted to make sure it was okay. I do think he's got a lot to offer in that area. I suppose I probably channeled my own experience over a couple of years here as superintendent, that I got to coach 8th grade B team basketball and loved it. And it was, it was managing things and making sure that I got done what I needed to. But I'm not concerned about him serving in a volunteer capacity. He's very conscientious. I don't think his job will suffer, and it's a way for him just to be involved with the program a little bit.
I guess like on nights where there's basketball games, they're always there.
Yeah, they
So-
are, and they're frequently.
Is that still going to work if he's like on the bench, so to speak, rather than?
I was just going to say, frequently when they're there, I know volleyball at least, sometimes basketball, they're helping run a scoreboard or something
Yeah,
too. So, I really just don't see it being a concern. I think if it became one, he knows he's volunteering, he knows what his job is, and he would correct it. So,
I mean, at wrestling, he's on the scoreboard or the time clock, so he's usually at the table during
Yes.
every event.
and he still would, and he said too, as far as contest administration, he's still doing that. I mean, he's not passing that buck to anybody, so I just don't have a concern. I think it's gonna be fine, but if there were any issues, I know we could make an adjustment too. He would just quit volunteering if it was an issue.
Anything further on the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion made by Carolyn to approve,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
We do not have presentations tonight.
And next we'll move into, let's see here, year-round.
Yep. This is brand new to Mimi, so I don't know if she wants to speak to it or not, but you sure can if you'd like to.
No, I think you have it's a 2-year application in order to have a year-round elementary school. So this is the application that's due to the state in order to approve, the continuation of our year-round program.
And it is a timing thing, we don't have the calendars built yet, and that Mimi's had one meeting with the handbook committee, usually gives some input on calendar. So what we do, and that's why the recommendation is worded the way it is, to give us permission to extend the program 2 more years with a substantially similar calendar. We have all those rules we have to follow with year-round calendar, but we have to have your approval and your minutes to go into the state system and complete that report, so.
So you have a public hearing first.
And yep, we need to have a public hearing if there would be anybody here who would want to speak about that proposal, that'd be your Brown program. Yep.
So anyone here to speak for or against year-round education? Okay, so that was opening, and now we'll close the public hearing. And then we can,
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal to continue to host the year-round education program for at least the next 2 years.
motion made by by Ben,
Seconded.
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All
Why does
those
it say at least? Does that means we could go longer?
Well, not on this application, it is an every 2-year application. I think
I just think the
I
word
think
is-
it just lets people know that at minimum, we're
Okay.
applying for 2 years. We'll have to do it again in 2 years. but,
Okay.
yeah.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And next is our return to learn update.
There's some information for you there in the packet, and then I'll add some things to that as well. I just asked, last Wednesday before the packet came out, I asked buildings for their remote learner percentages. I did just hear from Emerson this afternoon that I think there are about 15 additional going remote at Emerson. So that number will go up to, probably 8% range or something, or more in line with the other elementaries. I did ask also, I thought you might be interested, since we put in the mask rule for K-5, the number of mask waivers, and the number ranges from a low of 3 to a high of 15. By building, Emerson has 3 waivers, Laura Ingalls Wilder has 7, Irving has 8, Whittier has 15, the middle school has 9, and the high school has 5. And then I also asked just what average daily attendance has been like. Has it been normal? Are we seeing large percentages of absences? And it's very, very normal, very routine, between 4 and 6%. And most years, our elementaries, as we look at average daily attendance, they're in the 95 to 96% range. Middle school, high school is usually 94, 95%. So it's right there. We're not really seeing additional absences right now. And the way we're doing attendance for the online learners is through engagement. If they're logging in and if they're completing work, then they're absent. This is just the on-site attendance that I asked for.
So a question I have is, I know in general we kind of wanted warning if someone's going from one to the other.
Right.
But if we're having like a surge like they're talking about and people decide that they want to do online, are we waiting or not waiting?
No, I think we're really working with people, and I think that's what happened at Emerson. And, you know, usually we ask people to try to commit to it for at least a couple of weeks, so it's a little less chaotic back and forth. But I think they're able to make that move pretty quickly. So, you know, we've tried to be flexible all throughout that, through this whole deal, and I think that's been well received. I think it's helped us a lot as we have had some quarantine situations. Some additional kind of background besides what I had in the packet too. As you probably know, you know, the virus is on the move. Warren County cracked 15% here in the most recent time we checked it. And I know that the city manager put out a notice just about city numbers too, that over the weekend we had 34 more positive cases in Indianola to bring that number to 391. We have had several situations where there's been a positive person, whether it's a student or a staff member or an AEA person, where being masked has helped with the contact tracing and with quarantines. So there have been multiple times I know that has kept kids in school already. So I know that was one of your main motivations in taking that back up, so I just wanted to share that. There are a lot of districts are concerned with rising positivity rates. I was on a kind of a group text with Warren County area schools here over the weekend. None of the Warren County schools are making an instructional program change tonight. And there are a lot of board meetings tonight and tomorrow. But in terms of going to a hybrid when they have been on site or something in response to rising rates, none of that is happening in the immediate area here. In the metro area, there are some changes. Des Moines Public had a Sunday board meeting where they made a decision that they're going to seek an online waiver, and they were just starting to come, you know, to phase back in person. West Des Moines Valley is going virtual this week with their high school. Johnston has a 3rd grade and a 4th grade class virtual this week, and Joaquin Middle School and an 8th and 9th grade building is virtual this week. And I think seeking a waiver too, I think. So, you know, it's in the news, but we, as I said, with our attendance, continue to have normal attendance. I think the masks have made a difference. We are seeing some positive cases. You know, we have not had quite the staffing pressure that some districts have had either. Mimi does lots and lots of work with COVID. I don't know, do you want to share anything else there that I don't have in the board packet?
What we're seeing a lot of is staff members whose spouse is positive. So then working through what they need to do and how they need to quarantine in the home, and every situation is different. So every person I talk to is walking through what happens. Students really, we just don't have a lot of student positivity, but a lot of our staff. I asked building principals this morning if they were having difficulty finding substitutes or filling gaps, and so far, 1 in a building, 2 in a building. I know Emerson's having a little bit more difficulty because they were short on associates to begin with, but otherwise they're still doing all right. I've got a couple of bus drivers that are waiting on results. So on the student population, it's really low. On the staff, there's a lot pending right now. So when I updated the website this afternoon, you know, we're still under 5, so I got to post we're still under 5, but there's a lot pending, and that could change pretty quickly.
We have a lot of middle school kids that are testing positive right now.
So I guess I'm confused because when we had that positive case in Irving in August, when the kid was quarantined just for being in the room, the parents were told, you know, so if a spouse is positive, does that shut down the whole family?
If the spouse is positive and they can quarantine within the home, truly isolate in their own room, wear a mask in shared spaces, it doesn't necessarily quarantine the whole family. The direct exposure, so when the student last saw that parent, they would have a quarantine for 14 days from that exposure. If it's our staff member's spouse, we've got that double negative where they're essential and they can come back. So a lot of them have been able to return even though their spouse is positive, still in quarantine.
Oh, because it's an essential worker. If it was a student, it's a different story.
Right.
Right.
So, and are they using the rapid testing? Like where they can go up during the day or?
We
or
we
do
don't
see it
designate
on-
where they have to test.
Well, I was just asking because there could be a difference between 9 days of getting results or.
They're going wherever they can. I had somebody tell me this afternoon that the whole, whole metro area is out of rapid tests, so they
Yeah.
had to go to Walgreens, and it's gonna be 5 to 7 days. So
Yeah,
I-
yeah, okay.
So-
Unless I get two negatives, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're still exposed and can't come back.
So since we're entering like cold and flu season here, and if we have a student that, say, he or she's, coughing during the classroom and stuff, what happens? Is that student then sent, or is it, like, what signifies them needing to be sent to the nurse, and then what happens after that?
Yeah, Warren County Health will tell us if they have symptoms, they need to quarantine. If they have symptoms and decide not to test, they need to quarantine. If they have symptoms and decide to test and it's negative, they're able to come back. If they have symptoms.
What are the symptoms? What
Or
are
the high risk or the low risk that the Iowa Department of Public Health put out.
The high-risk symptoms.
Right, so
So-
have we pushed that out on our, yeah, because like a runny nose is not a high-risk symptom,
Right.
right? And actually,
know what
fever
they
is
are.
not a high-risk symptom.
Okay, so what are,
Right,
do you know
so-
what the high-risk symptoms are?
Yes, like the taste, the
Loss of taste,
loss of
smell,
taste, smell, shortness of breath, but really like the
Okay.
sneeziness and
Yeah.
that's,
Cough.
those are, and I believe that is still over in the low-risk symptoms.
So, okay, so I'm just wondering, like, if we go into that, are we gonna be sending a lot of kids to the nurse then, just because a kid's coughing, sneezing?
I don't think it's been our approach. I've only had that conversation, I think, with one parent early on. And that was, we understand that some of the symptoms obviously can be a lot of different things. And I think this was actually a parent who was pretty sure their kid was having some seasonal allergy
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah, that's
You know,
what I was thinking.
and I encourage increased vigilance. You do the screening.
Yeah.
But, we don't require anybody to go test. So now, as Mimi was saying, we are bound by Warren County Health Services rules. So if they're saying quarantine, we quarantine.
And sometimes that, if I know my daughter has allergies, you can get an alternate diagnosis without, having a huge COVID test. If my doctor knows she's got seasonal allergies and, I can get a note.
But they would have to go see the doctor to get that alternative
Potentially.
diagnosis, or,
If it's one of the high risk symptoms.
I was just, if kids, are having these symptoms or whatever, it would just be horrible to have a whole bunch of them out if they've just got colds.
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody's approach to, kid cough, send them to the nurse. And
Yeah.
in fact, in the fall, we talked about trying to scale back some of the routine things that went to the nurse sometimes, so they would be available for that something serious, so.
And even with both people masked, that makes it a little bit different too, there's that added layer of protection.
Thanks.
So the rest of it, I think I kind of have, and I have some questions too, but, we have this on here as a potential action item, and I mentioned there that, that emerged as a board priority to return students to full-time on-site instruction. So we were already talking about ways to support staff, and then that conversation became, very, very pointed, more important, if we are going to try to make this change here. And we have posted for positions now in terms of remote instructors, remote advocates. The recommendation wording, says to return to the originally approved calendar for year-round additional at the beginning of the second semester. Go ahead.
Where are you posting these? Like on our, like these positions?
Oh, every school position in Iowa goes on teachiowa.gov.
And teach Iowa, well, people have just asked me.
And our
It's on our
website.
website, and then they can also go to, and then it pushes out to Teach Iowa.
Teachiowa.gov.
And are these being kind of positioned as temporary?
Yeah, we've talked about that really this will be a semester job. And, teaching contracts, if you get a certified teacher, they are 279 contracts, we call them, Chapter 279, continuing contracts, but there's also a probationary period. And so they're posted, like any other teaching position, but it'll be very clear as we talk with people, meet with people, why we're doing it. and what it is, so. I mentioned a rationale there, which, I think you understand, the time involved if we're going to do this. We want to try to have it be as smooth a transition as possible, give us the opportunity to do some training, potentially hire mid-year graduates. I know we are doing some trials of some speaker things in terms of technology, with the thought that we may have to do more synchronous learning, zooming into the classroom, particularly the secondary levels. And then also, the last sentence I put there was the second semester date does give us some time to see what happens with COVID-19. I know some schools who are set to come back right now, they're really having second thoughts or backtracking. This does give us some time to see what happens with the virus as well. I guess a question, clarification, is this decision, if we make this recommendation tonight and have that action, is that contingent on us being able to get the remote instructors? Or is it going to be a deal where, we approved it and then, figure it out if you can't get them? Somebody asked me the question, would we stay with the early out if we only got some remote teachers hired and they could just give some assistance? So those are the kinds of questions that are out there yet, I think, is under what circumstances would we not go ahead with it? And then definitely, I mean, I'm a fan of the advance notice and the action tonight. I think that was responsible. Yeah, that's where the board wants to end up. I think it's responsible to talk about it now and give us time to enact some things. But would you like another check-in date? You want to see where we're at. December 14th, I think, is our December board meeting. Have we secured staff? Have we gotten needed technology? I mean, I'm going to keep giving you return updates anyway.
So what have we posted? Ideally, what are we suggesting for temporary online teaching support?
I think go ahead, Mimi, I'll let you speak to it. But.
Posted for an elementary remote K1, and then a 2-3, a 4-5, and a special ed. And we posted for a remote secondary special ed that would cover both the middle school and high school. And then we've also posted for those remote advocate positions that would help at the middle school and high school to connect with remote students who maybe aren't engaged and help them get re-engaged. And that takes a big load off of those teachers' plates to make those connections and those calls and those contacts all the time.
So five certified teaching positions plus remote advocates is what we've got out there.
And so the remote advocates, that would be 5 days a week, that would be the same thing, 5 days a week. And if they're remote, we still looking at an 8-hour day for these people, or?
They're part-time is what we've talked about, and we have some grant funding for them, and that, their hours are based on when we can get them and when the grant funding expires. And if that works and it's helpful, then we would continue that.
And the remote advocates do not have to have an education degree.
It's preferred, and that's what we've
Yeah, it's listed as a preferred qualification. I mean, in an ideal world, you would have people who have worked in schools, and ideally, even if they knew Indianola, knew our kids, knew our processes, that would be a great fit. But in terms of making calls, connecting with people, you can cast a little broader net if you need to.
I just think of our pool of substitute teachers we have right now, they all have degrees, right? But it's not necessarily education degrees. But would that, being remote advocate, would that be something that would be attractive to that pool of people?
Could be. We're actually a little bit worried about advertising for all these positions because it could pull from our sub pool, which, as you heard me say earlier, we're getting along pretty well right now. There are some districts under a lot of pressure with subs.
How many remote advocates are you looking for?
We've posted for 5. We'll see, what we can come up with, 5 part-time or full-time, or just kind of an assortment that
What about like specials, those teachers? How does that?
The way
go
we've
through?
talked about it, at least at the elementary level, specials would continue to do their own remote. So we've got some flexibility in their schedules, and they would be able to parse out. I know Wilder and Whittier share, so those special teachers are pretty packed solid, but the others are able to divvy up. In kindergarten, first remote, second, third, fourth remote, so they're able to manage those.
Middle school and high school should be fine.
Should be.
Two thoughts that are in my head is, number one, if we're bringing our youngsters back, our students back full-time, that's gonna take the teacher's whole day. You know, I don't know how much time they're gonna have, or do we want them to also have the responsibility, even with help, for the youngsters that are learning at home? That concerns me. That's really overloading teachers if we do that. So I have that concern. I have no objection with a resolution tonight that says it is our intent to work towards bringing our students back on these dates. Because I'd like the community to understand, nowhere are we talking about bringing them back before that. You know, we're gonna make this say, I don't see bringing our kids back before the dates in January. I don't see any way that can happen. I'd like the community to know that. Something could happen, we might have to make it later. Does that kind of make sense, or?
Yeah, I actually really like to hear that from the board perspective. I think there would be huge hurdles trying to do it sooner.
Yeah.
You know, a natural time, if you're going to try to do it, assuming we can get the things in place that we're working on right now, would be semester time. You know, in terms of, when you're talking about hiring teachers, you know, maybe mid-year graduates or retired people or whatever, you know, that's a lot cleaner to do it that semester than it is. Otherwise, you get another substitute situation where we've already talked about that sub-pool's kind of tough.
So what did you mean your first point there, though? What?
Well, if we have the kids full-time, that's the teacher's full day.
Right.
Now, if they used to have 24 in their class and they only have 21, that's still their full day.
Right.
They don't have time to take care of those other three.
Right.
And I'm making these numbers up, of course.
Right. Right.
Okay, so we have to make sure we've taken care of that. And it sounds like
Oh, okay.
what I just heard in the elementary, I
Yeah.
can see it in reality, but we have to make sure we take care of that everywhere.
It's easier at the elementary, I think, assuming you can get those people. You know, the best idea so far, other than the remote advocates at the secondary levels, which would help, is to try to do more synchronous remote learning, which would be to, you know, to have kids Zoom into the classroom live versus doing a separate lesson plan. But that is, I mean, it's a concern we share. We have felt that from the start. That's why we came out of the box with this 90-minute early release and why we've stuck with it. So that's a definite concern. One other thing that we've talked about a little bit administratively, and I've asked a couple of times, and you know, I think it really is kind of the pleasure of the board, is whether or not we want to require medical certification for remote learning once we do get back full-time. With, to me, one of the main rationales for doing that would be to keep that number of remote learners as low as is necessary. Because if we do hire a remote teacher, for example, we have a kindergarten, first grade remote teacher, okay, they may have 50 kids, you know, between kindergarten and first grade, and we don't necessarily want to overload our remote teacher either in terms of how well they can educate that number of remote learners. That's just something we talked about a little bit this morning. I don't think you necessarily have to decide that tonight, but I do think that's something. I mean, if we do nothing, obviously right now we have not required it. And our percentages of remote learners have been pretty steady, have been declining up to this point. I just mentioned, I know at least at one elementary, there's going to be a little jump here starting this week. But that's something for you to think about too.
I know I had 2 remote learners. It was stressful. And I know those teachers, because I sit in on some of the Irving calls, the Zooms. Those teachers were stressed. I could tell in their voice. They had kids talking and she'd have to tell them to mute, and she was trying to explain stuff and it got confusing, and you know, I could tell she was getting frustrated because she couldn't get across what she was trying to tell these second graders. And it was, I mean, it was tough. I felt for her trying to, because I knew she was rushed because she had another Zoom she had to go do, but I mean,
Yeah, it's not easy.
I'm impressed that they're
Yeah.
doing, because I'll tell you what, I was ready to pull my hair out. But I mean, it was, you could tell in their voice, they were a little stressed on the different Zooms they were doing.
So
I
actually,
think we gotta be careful.
I have a question. So let's say we've got these job postings and we get them all filled, or like we have tons of candidates, it's great. Are we saying we would fill all of them? And then by that, then we would potentially, like at some point we would do, are we kind of committing ourselves to kind of the infrastructure we have now in the sense that you can opt for online? And then the people that opt for in-person, are there the full day? Is that kind of the direction we're going with this?
That's my question.
Okay.
Yes, the in-person would be full day. That's
Yeah.
the goal of the board, as I understand it. And we're trying to get additional people in there, remote teachers, to make that more realistic so that we don't overload our teachers, as Mr. President said. I think the question is whether or not you just let people choose the remote option or you require the medical certification.
Well, I guess where I'm kind of going with that is, my first instinct is you still let them choose, because otherwise, if you're forcing them, you just hired someone who's got a very expensive private tutor. Because you might end up with just like 1 or 2 people in K1, you know what I mean?
But on the other hand, you might get a whole bunch of people doing it, and the teacher's trying to do kindergarten, if they're just doing 2 grades, it sounds to me like, if they have a bunch of people online, that's a lot of people to evaluate and
Well, I
keep
say if
track
we're
of.
forcing them to be in person, there'd be hardly anyone, they'd be the waivers that are online.
Right, I mean, I would be for them having to have a medical waiver to stay online if we went
Can we
back
legally ask
full
for
time.
that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's
Yeah, we have to provide an online option for this school year. We can require the medical waiver. We actually have it in board policy already, we just haven't enacted it.
I guess to your point though, what I was trying to make is what you're saying,
Yeah,
is if we do that, and let's say K1 is 3 kids, we just hired someone and paying them to do the 3 kids,
right.
unless people come in and out because of quarantine, I
Right,
get that.
but yeah,
And
it's
that's
just that-
fine, but I was just saying, that's from a dollar standpoint, that's where
And I
we're
get
throwing
that,
our
I mean,
money.
I understand that, I just am afraid that, because right now I've got people going in and out, and if these people are trying to teach it online, and these maybe are brand-new graduates that have never taught before, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and they've got people buzzing in and out all the time, that's gonna make it really hard for them.
I'm assuming though, if like we did get to that scenario there where it's just a few kids remote and we've hired somebody, they'd be doing something else to help the other classrooms, wouldn't they? They're not.
I'm not
They're
too
not gonna
concerned about
just
keeping somebody
special.
busy, and I've heard elementary teachers make the comment this year that it doesn't matter so much whether they have, 1 online student or 10. I mean, there's still extra planning, extra time, uploads, running the Zooms, all of that. So I do think we can get those people, we can keep them busy.
The feedback really came from the middle school meeting. So at the elementary level, those folks that are remote and have been consistently remote would then be rostered to that, the remote teacher, that virtual teacher. At the middle school and high school level, if we're looking at just the advocate that's not doing any of the teaching, and we're gonna do more of that live streaming into the classroom, they're like, we want those kids back here because the remote students are harder. So if we can get a medical waiver and get those students back in the classroom, or more students back in the classroom, that's gonna be better for the upper levels. So that's kind of where that hey, why don't we look at the medical waiver again comment came from, was the higher levels.
What, can we pull up the medical waiver? Like, we have a written one, right?
We do.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on the front page of the.
That's the mask, yeah, the medical mask.
Oh,
Mask
is
is
there a
an
different-
exemption. There's a slightly different form that is actually in board policy, and I don't have my laptop in front of me, maybe we can find it and pull it up. But that is a request for online instruction form, which to this point we haven't required, and I don't think we put it out there. It is in board policy, but,
I just would be interesting how it is, what the verbiage is, because if we have a family over here where the mom goes to the nursing home and cares for her mom, so they have to stay online, so it's not a direct medical situation within their family, but they don't want anyone exposed because they're caregivers of someone else. Like, how detailed is this gonna be, right? Because now, again, we're dictating to families, like, your situation is okay to stay home and your situation is not. We have families in our neighborhood that they're home learning because mom and dad both have to go to work and they have the opportunity of being exposed at work and they don't want any more exposure, so that's why the kids are. So I think it was just interesting what that verbiage is does the student have to have the medical problem? Or can it be that they are caregivers of grandma and grandpa and they've shut down exposure? Are they,
I think it's maybe somewhere in between those two, and Ray's searching for it here, but I believe it talked about either the student or a health need in the home. Now, that wouldn't extend as far as something you're talking about, I don't think, where you're going outside the home or you're worried about an exposure at work. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't want to make a decision on that particular subject this evening.
On what? The medical waiver?
Reavers.
I think we need to see the verbiage.
yeah, and that's, it is, I mean, it exists in board policy, and we're
Yeah.
looking for it. It's in the-
I think we could revisit the medical waiver, but I mean, I think like Ken said earlier, I mean, our responsibility, as we've all said, is to get as many kids back into school and get things to return as best as possible. And I think our job is to set a high level thing, and then, yeah, if they can get to it, that's what we should be working towards as hard as possible, is to get to that and to make sure that we get there. If we fall short, we'll have to reevaluate, and maybe at each of our board meetings, we just give an update at like, where are we at on this actually taking place? Just like we've said before, we can change if we need to, so, but we might as well set some direction, so some families can start planning, some teachers can start planning, you guys can start planning, getting people in.
I think that's fine, to formalize the intention to return to the approved 2021 calendar, year-round and traditional at semester. Even you taking that stance tonight, saying this is our intention, we're working toward it, that does give people a kind of, heads up that you're talking about.
Yeah, and then we can talk about the mask, or not the mask,
The waivers.
the waiver.
The other stuff too.
And I'll get that shared, and I'll get that in the next agenda too, but I know it is in policy, I wasn't thinking
well,
about
I
reading
just
it.
know we have a large group following online, and when you start talking about medical exemptions, I know a lot of questions are going to be posed.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
which is why.
Do we have know when the Chromebooks are gonna come yet, or do we have any?
It's still looking like January, possibly even early February. I did get an update a week or so ago, and that's what I was told, January, maybe even early February.
Because I heard a couple of the schools, I don't know if it's Ankeny was maybe gonna go back hybrid, but not the elementary. A lot of people are leaving their elementary kids in school, and I thought we wouldn't really have a choice, because we don't have.
There are a lot of other districts that are in the same boat we are. Just
Yeah.
No, Ballard just got a first batch.
waiting on those,
I was just curious what the status of we were.
Amy, how long have those jobs been posted for, and is there much interest?
4 or 5 days. We've had, I want to say 4 applications for the virtual teachers, and a couple of questions that have come through, and then a handful for the advocates.
I think it'd be something that's appropriate to visit next board meeting, because obviously, that's a crucial part in moving forward, but everything else is having the people to fill those online positions. So I think hopefully by next meeting, we'd have a better idea of the interest level in that.
You'd rather wait then?
No,
Or you mean just revisit it?
just revisit
Okay,
it.
okay.
I'm good with the defined date, I think
Okay.
that's good, I just, at this point, we don't even know, if there's any interest or any qualified people, I mean, that would.
Right,
the whole
right.
plan, right?
We could revisit it all the way up until what? Winter
Well,
break?
December meeting, you get to December 14th, you've got Christmas break in there, and if we haven't gone full stream ahead of trying to train and hire people, but I think we would do that regardless, even if we stayed in this model, we've still been looking for ways we can support teachers, so I think we can use the help.
Okay.
But I think it's absolutely necessary if we do go back full days, so, yeah, we can definitely, we have 2 more regular meetings, and if we have to have, some other special meeting, we probably can. I'm gonna talk about one later for another purpose, so, yeah.
If I may, Rob?
Yep.
I'd like to move that it's the intent of the Board of Directors to move to, what do I want to say, pull our students back, or to go to all-day learning on the 2 dates mentioned?
Return to the originally approved 2021 traditional and year-round calendars.
I should have just, I used the word intent, so.
Intent, yeah, okay. Motion made by Ken,
One second.
seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. Next is the election of board officers.
We can do this different ways. I know that Jonna has ballots if we end up with, multiple nominations and people who accept nominations. If you have a nomination and the person accepts and there aren't other nominations, you can approve just by acclamation. You can move the nominations close and you can go from there. So it's kind of depends on how much interest there is or how many people you want to nominate. So.
Can I start?
Go, Ken.
Yeah, I'm gonna nominate Rob, who said he would be happy to serve another year as president.
I second it. He's done a great job.
Do we have to vote on that
We
specifically?
I would
just
ask if
acclimate,
there
can we
were
just
any
say,
other nominations.
Okay, all right.
okay, we'll say yes.
Are there any other nominations? Anybody else?
Yes, Ron.
No, yeah, that's
You
fine.
accept it?
Yes, I accept.
Oh, you fool.
All right.
So Rob, president by acclamation.
And I would like to nominate Ben for the position of the vice president of the board.
I will second that.
Okay. Any other nominations? No. All right. So by
Yep, by acclamation. Okay.
serve as vice president.
And Jonna has an oath for you then, right? Okay.
Put your hand on that one.
What's that? What'd you say?
Put your hand on the mic.
Put your hand on the Bible.
We'll do both of you at the same time,
Oh, okay.
as officers. Okay. Do you solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and will you faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge all the duties of board vice president and president in the Indianola School District as now or hereafter required by law?
Yes.
Okay.
Congratulations. Congratulations, yeah, that was painful.
Yeah, Rob promised to do all the heavy lifting.
And thanks, Carolyn.
Hey, lose your spot by the door.
Thanks for,
Run out anytime, Ken.
Carolyn, thanks for serving as me. All right. Next is set time and place of board meetings. Should we do them in the morning instead? I'm just joking.
No.
Do we approve it?
Can we just approve what's up there?
Board, do we need board action? Okay. Well, I move that we follow the schedule that's outlined in the packet.
Excellent. Motion made by Carolyn to approve the current schedule,
Second that motion.
Yeah,
5:30
5:30.
PM. Good. Seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the committee assignments.
We just have listed what the current ones are. We anticipate, I think there almost always has been some change. People want to try some new things, serve in different areas, build a knowledge base. So that's really up to you. We typically, keep that 2 or 3. You can see the number there. We keep it under a quorum usually, but that's again up to you. I would say wherever your interest lies, and we can go through them in any order or whatever you want to do.
Well, I do know that I'd like to step off the finance committee, because I'd like somebody else to get some experience on there.
It's definitely Sue.
God gave all of us different skills.
Yeah, and
I will step on, but not right now, not this year.
I'll do the finance.
So do we wanna,
Carolyn, you wanna stay
focus
on?
on one of the
I can
committees
stay
right now?
on.
And then-
You want me to?
That was finance.
Yeah.
Ken come off and Donna went on.
I'll stay on finance.
I can stay on finance.
Finance is done. I will say I'm very flexible because I've been around a long time, I've been on a lot of committees. I probably would not be good on policy. And I'm just saying, that's not my forte. So I'll kind of pick up the pieces personally. If people have,
Okay.
newer people have things they want to try, I'll kind of sit back and see what's needed at the end.
About the finance committee, are we still thinking 7 AM on the third Tuesday? Does that still work for all? Donna? Does that work for you?
For what now?
7 AM on the third Tuesday for finance?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was thinking the other one was the second, so, okay.
Does anybody else have one they definitely, that they want to move off of or move on to?
Well, I'd say the human resources historically doesn't have to be, but at one point we did have president, what was it? Vice president or former president? I don't remember. We've kind of gone away from that, so I guess maybe that doesn't.
Does whoever's currently on human resources, does everybody want to just continue to serve on human resources?
Yeah, I prefer to, yeah.
I'm good.
Sue, you do a lot with that area, don't you? I can step, I mean, I don't know, you probably need the president on there, or you don't have to. I can step off if you want me to. Then you could get some experience on it, if you want.
It doesn't matter if they want the president to stay on that one, I'm fine. Because the one that's not up there is at the wellness committee, and that's almost 2 to 3 meetings a month.
Oh.
For me, so I'm only up there twice, but
Okay.
the wellness and mental health
Okay.
one is.
You don't need anything else on your plate?
We are
Okay,
gonna continue.
that's fine.
Especially in the climate we're in, that's been a busy committee.
So keep human resources the same?
Okay.
Good, because it's tomorrow.
Yep, your meeting tomorrow.
I know.
Okay, how about curriculum? Is curriculum good? Lori, Sue? Ben, are you wanting to switch anything up?
It doesn't, I mean, I enjoy facilities, so I'll stay on that if nobody else is interested. Policy, I mean, if anybody wants to take a shot at it,
Policy gets a bad rap every time.
you can see Art at work, he's a very good wordsmith. It's riveting sometimes, but no. If anybody's interested in policy, I'll step off, but if not, I'll stay on. Nobody's interested in policies.
Nobody's jumping.
Ken, are you gonna stay on it?
Silence is deafening.
All right, Ken and I'll stay on policy.
You guys have been good. We've got a lot done.
I'll stay on facilities if nobody else wants that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting on facilities if it's possible. Does anybody want it?
Donna and Sue?
Off of it, you mean, or something else?
I enjoy facilities, but whatever, doesn't.
It doesn't matter to me.
You went to finance, so.
Donna picked one up. She's on 3 now. There's no reason she can't be, but if she doesn't care about facilities, we could sub Ken in for Donna.
I think it's good to kind of bounce between them, actually, so. It's all yours.
Okay, that's 7 AM on the first Thursday.
I feel like 1 year is very short to sit on these committees, like especially when I look at us trying to get those mental health there. I mean, that was a good 6 months worth of work, and now we're like still trying to follow up and look at referral numbers and see where we're at, you know.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having, a pretty stable committee. And that's, Rob and I were just talking, it seems crazy that our new board members have only been on a year, so much has happened. But
What?
It was like 10.
Rob, did you want, I'd like to stay on the ad hoc safety
Yeah.
committee. I'm assuming you do
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, so really just one change there?
What about curriculum and technology? Are those switching up? curriculum's Lori, Donna, and Sue. Technology's Lori, Rob, and Carolyn.
Yeah, I like technology, so I'm fine with that, unless someone wants to come on it.
We don't have to change for sake of change. If people are good, that's.
I'm still learning the curriculum stuff, so I feel like I'm still learning it, all the board.
You okay doing 3, Donna?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we subbed Ken in, oh, that's right, Donna. Does Donna have 3?
She has
She has finance and curriculum, but we subbed Ken in on facilities.
Ken and Carolyn, did you guys have experience with the whole building thing in the past when serving on a board? Any building experience where it helped on facilities? Like in past boards, since you guys have been on for a long time, have you guys ever had experience serving,
Well, we had a lot of building going on.
helping with buildings?
if they're-
Like, would that be good to be, one of you two to be on facilities
Oh, you mean like,
for past experience?
Facilities, yeah.
Oh, you did get on it, okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Who went off?
Done.
Ed and I just traded committee.
Oh, okay. See, I'm far behind. This is what happens when you wake up at 1:30 and don't go back to sleep.
Traded Ken for a player to be named later.
All right.
Sounds like maybe we're ready to move on, huh? There weren't many changes, obviously, but we'll get an updated list out.
do we need to approve it?
Yeah, I guess we do.
So curriculum and technology, status quo, yes?
Yep. One change was swapping Ken and Donna on facilities and finance.
I move approval of those changes.
Motion made by Carolyn,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the appoint Warren County Conference Board member.
Did they have a meeting?
Yeah, they meet once a year, and it's one of the most boring things in the world, so I'll happily do it again for another year, because after I'm off, whoever goes there's no learning curve to that one.
Sounds like a motion then for changing and you serving on the Warren County Conference Board.
Motion made by Ben for
Second.
Ken, seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, next is the Technology Committee meeting report.
Seems like a long time ago.
It was a really good meeting, I think, but it may be difficult to explain all of it.
Maybe you focus on this, Go Guardian beacon.
Yes, we did. We did. It was really good.
It was.
So is this something that is just information? Just because being on the wellness committee, has a lot to do with what we talk about, mental health, suicide.
Does it make sense to kind of throw it at that committee to review it?
Well, I was reading it and I went on there,
Yeah.
like, to look through it all and to see the other things we have already on the website too. Because one of them, I was like, whoa, I got a text message that just said, it was in the website more, hey, your kid is, researching suicide. Like, I was like, whoa, that would be like an immediate alarm in my mind. So I spent a lot of time when I saw this go through this process. So I just wanted to hear, do you guys have more info on this stuff, or is this?
It was awareness really, but I wonder if it doesn't make sense
I think it does.
to go to that other, that new committee and just have them kind of be the person you lean to for the opinion on it, whether it lines up.
A little bit about it too,
Yeah.
just to kind of let you know
Yeah.
where we're at with it. I mean, it is something that, as I'm sure you read there, the starter plan is included with our subscription right now. And so we have activated that, but that doesn't create any alerts for parents at the moment. And we even talked with a smaller group that might not even be what we want to do is turn that on to parents. And so right now, our vice principal in the middle school is getting those that are high severity alert. The core plan actually, that's the beginning for
you may want to say that it's only with Chromebooks too.
I was about to
That's why
say, when
it's-
you say they're getting a high alert, that's coming just from a computer. That's not like a verbal one-on-one with a counselor.
Right,
So
that,
this is
that is
a-
just the system notifying the vice principal that, hey, it sees something that looks maybe not quite.
The kids are Googling it, right? Or
Well,
they're
it
looking
could-
it up
It could be
about
that they
suicide.
are
Right,
looking
right, I get
something
that.
up, it could be that it's in their email, it's basically anything that passes their
Right.
screen.
Yep.
That looks like it's suicide, cell phone, that situation. The core plan, like I said, that's, as I mentioned there, that is the paid one, that does give alerts at, lower levels, so you can kind of start to investigate maybe a little earlier on. That one, they just actually gave us a free trial of that. And so we haven't really set that up yet to know, what that would look like. There's obviously many discussions to be had about what would this look like at the building level, how many people would be notified, what, counselors, vice principal, whoever. So all that stuff would definitely need to be discussed and hashed out, and, obviously none of that has been done right now, so.
Yeah, and I think that wellness group could be, could be somebody that would help. Because you have some different roles within that group.
Yeah, very much.
Could help decide that, help figure out, okay, what are the escalating contacts, that kind of thing.
We want to move forward, at some point with the paid version, we definitely want to have those discussions, and
And I believe the three of
Well,
us
the
that
IT
watched,
committee was-
we were all
IT
supportive.
committee was
Yeah.
in favor of a paid version, it seemed like.
So when you say we already have something like this up and running,
right now it's just a trial. So
okay, how long does that trial go?
No, first of all, we get something for free because they happen to also do this. So it's not like we went out, it's like, it's a feature that used to cost money, now this entry thing is free,
Okay.
right?
So
I'll
have
just
we,
clarify that, yes.
Yeah.
So the starter plan is now included with our GoGuardian subscription, and we use GoGuardian to do all of our filtering and classroom management on our middle school Chromebook.
okay, so it's a filtering system, kind of.
Kind of, but it's really two separate products. So GoGuardian, they own the filtering, the classroom management, they own all that product. They also own a Beacon product, which is the self-harm
Okay.
type product. Because we purchased the filtering and the classroom management that we've been using for several years, the starter for Beacon is now included. So that low-level, entry-level plan monitoring is now included as part of that filtering product.
So as part of the filtering process, does that include, when they're researching drugs, when they're researching alcohol, eating disorders, like, does it include any of
That
that?
type of stuff is more on the filtering side of the house. The Beacon side is really about self-harm and whatever
Right.
that.
So are we pulling numbers of how many of our principals or whoever is getting alerted on the drugs and
Yeah, that's.
those other mental health issues?
I don't know, I can't tell you exactly what those
Okay.
numbers are. That's a product we've been using to manage for several.
Okay. So, and we haven't started even the free part that's on here yet?
We have, that's what I'm saying.
Do we have any?
We have had some alerts.
Alerts.
And those have been investigated, just as if it would have been if somebody came and said, hey, I see this kid's experiencing or exhibiting some behavior. It's been handled in that same manner right now.
And it's the high, it's like, yeah, if there's levels, it's a high level, so you're not getting in early, it's kind of at the,
Right.
Whereas,
The filters start at middle school?
so that right now is, the quote, or the amounts you see on there
Yeah.
is all just at middle school. And the reason for that is this product is specific to Chromebooks right now. So-
Okay.
And I'm told they're working on one for other devices, Macs and PCs, but that could be more than a year down the road for those devices. So elementary-wise, it's something we could do with the elementary if we wanted to, when we get those Chromebooks, but right now it's primarily just the middle school. One update here that I'll share with us too is, so again, the core plan, which gives us a little more insight to how the kids are, building up to that high level risk, if you will. That is the one that they've given us a trial on until the end of December.
Okay.
In addition to that, if we decide to go with a core plan, they have said because we have purchased the GoGuardian filter, but we haven't really been able to use it for the elementary because of the Chromebooks being delayed, they will actually give us the 24/7, which is the highest level through the end of the school year. So just to kind of help offset that amount we're already spending but not being able to use because of the delay of the Chromebooks. So there is some new news since this meeting.
Yeah, I think what Carolyn said, like moving it on to that other committee to look at makes sense.
Right, right.
Exactly
I think from an
what-
IT standpoint, there's great awareness that it's there, and then I think it flips over to the,
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
I think we all agreed, didn't we, that we thought we should purchase the core plan anyway?
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on committee, or on the technology committee? I think the security
Well,
cameras were.
hold on, I do have a question on this. So what's our follow-up? What's our follow-up? What's our protocol? So a principal gets alerted. Do they just have a conversation? I mean, do we have the next step in place to go to where these kids then, do we have people, an elevated trauma-informed care therapist ready? What,
For right now, the only thing I can tell you, Sue, is that we're handling it just like we would, again, if the principal was notified through some other means. So whatever that process is, it's the same process. It's just another avenue of discovering
right.
the behaviors out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. What we see a lot in these screening things is that, yeah, we screened you, and yeah, here's your kid, and yeah, and then there's nothing, there's not a follow-up. So what do? We've got the positive screen. Now as a district, what do? And we're seeing that with our screening tool that we put out for brain injury and homelessness and mental health. It's, yeah, you screened positive. Okay, great. Now what we do, because we would hate for them to have that conversation with the principal and for their parent to, your kid, say, screened or came through, and we don't have the next step ready to go for the,
And I'll be honest, because it's so new, I can't tell you.
Right.
That
Okay.
We haven't even decided that's what we're going to go forward with.
I think we've just left technology and his expertise and gone into responses we need from the principals
right.
on how things are handled. I think it's appropriate to ask for the meeting, and Art can figure that out with those guys. With the team.
Just what is our follow-up?
That'd be in the wellness committee that you guys would figure that out, like,
Well, yeah.
if it's,
Yeah, I mean, like, we would give us a place to start.
I mean, that'd be
How are
a
the
good
principals?
presentation for the board to hear from principal, what, you have a student in crisis, what's the process?
yeah.
Right. Just so we all know, if we get a phone call or what, I got one over the weekend from someone in our district. And, so just so we know what, all tools are great, we just need to make sure our next step is ready to go, so we can help the parent and.
Thanks, thanks, Ray.
Anything else on there you guys have questions about?
No, thank you.
Next is Jonna with the monthly financials.
As you can see, this is August now, we'll have September next, to try and give you one piece at a time. And it's pretty quiet, as you can see. Probably the biggest piece is if you look at the management fund, that July 1st, August, you see the difference in the year-to-date expenditures, shows the big chunk that we had for both repay all our insurances out of that, which is about $750,000 or more. And then the early retirement plan that was about 1.25 million, which still leaves us with a healthy balance. So,
Are we seeing any, I was expecting to see maybe more income with the property tax being late, or?
we haven't, and a lot of times, and this was a unique year, a lot of times we don't see anything until September, always, so you see
okay.
that they don't do July and August, they hit it at September, so I'm hoping that October's a good one. September, that's when we should have seen it.
So we've already received that payment.
for property taxes of October?
For September, we've seen September's, which is a lot. Typically, it's more than, obviously, that's the first time we would start to receive funds. October and April are the two big months that we receive funds, so.
Should we have received September's?
Oh, yeah, we've received like September's and October's, yeah. So no, we don't have that much. And you can see where we stand, as in August, is 16.66% of our year, though that is not, as Carolyn and I, we always try to figure out the best way to do the year. It's hard to, it's part of the
I've given up on that.
It's not part of the funding of the year, right? So that's why you see the smaller amounts that we have. And cash flow is probably, you can see, it's very hard to see, it's the brown, probably the fourth highest from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's close to the third highest. Again, this is cash. Budget is more important than cash. So the last 2 years, we haven't been able to cash reserve, it's been very paltry. So 95,000, which is essentially zero on our budget, and 300,000 this year. So next year, we can start to cash reserve again. So that'll help bring our cash up, depending on how the budget kind of weighs out.
I'll move approval of the monthly financial report.
Motion made by Ken,
I'll second it.
seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board of the monthly financials? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the 2021 budget development.
21-22, yes, this is our.
Or 21-22,
modified
sorry.
Supplemental amounts. There are, in the motions, we need 3 different separate motions for the 3 different pieces that we haven't talked about yet. But if you look at this, the second sheet, it shows our total for the year as compared to last year. So we're at 1.27 million that we can ask for in allowable growth or in maximum funding for budget piece, not cash, budget. And it splits it out by, you see the special ed deficit's 819,000, previous LEP, which is limited English proficient, is 113. Those two both obviously had, actually every single one of the categories have increased. And then the difference, it's confusing because the limited English instructional years beyond 5 years, that's confusing in the fact that, you've already talked about your excess cost in previous years. So last year we were over because we added staff in that program, and it's looking at last year's. The LEP instruction beyond 5 years is actually looking at this current year, and so any student that's beyond 5 years, every year they get 0.22%, 0.22 FTE. So then if they have over 5, at that point they expect them to be somewhat proficient. But as you can see, that's not always the case, meaning that we have another 20,000 that we can request beyond that, beyond the 5 years. And then the 2 pieces with these, all 3 come in the open enrollment time, since we've just finished that. The open enrollment students that are in our district, they weren't in the previous year count, and they're open enroll out students. So we need to count them so that we can pay the neighboring district to take them. So we get an allowable growth one time for that as well. But then we did see a small increase in enrollment, so that's helpful as well. So 1.2 million, increase of just under 350,000. And if you were to put that as a tax rate, that's what I show below. If you put that as a tax rate, it would be, that 1.27 would equal about $1.27 per thousand. So, not that really always works that way, but it did.
So what you're saying is if you levied that full amount in the next budget, that would equate to $1.26 on the tax levy. That's not to say it would necessarily be a $1.26 increase either, because there are other pieces that play together, like the management fund and different things like that. And tonight, what you're asking from the board is just permission to seek this spending authority. This is not related to tax levy at all tonight.
No.
Other than your information showing
That's what it
equates
would
to.
be. I just want to show you what if you did it all, that's what it would be for, in tax rate, for cash reserve.
So the special education deficit and the LEP excess cost, those are going up because of more students being served in those two areas? Year over year?
Classifications,
What's that?
or classifications of students, right?
Yeah, and that, you know, in the year-end reporting, if you go back and look at the year-end reporting, the special ed supplement showed, you know, increase of, I think, 40 kids, I think, from one year to the next.
Is that the level 1, 2, and 3 are different too?
Right.
And then the LEP, we have seen increase in that, but we did respond this last year and hired a second teacher. So we have 2 teachers that teach K-12, all buildings. And then we do have some associate time built in that with that as well.
So that's why the LEP went up kind of substantially, okay.
And those two really operate very, very similarly, meaning that special ed deficit, if we request it, we usually get it because we have to serve those students. Well, that's the same with our limited English students as well. So those two kind of work in the way that it's an automatic. They go to the school budget review committee as a lump sum class action for all districts for those two pieces. The other ones we need to request separately, so.
So those 3 items under letter B, page 41, need to be 3 separate action items.
I will gladly move the first one. The LEP instructional beyond 5 years for 20,000, et cetera.
Motion made by Ken,
I'll second that.
seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I'll gladly move the second one, the out students not in the fall 2019 count for $205,000, et cetera.
Motion made by Ken,
Second.
seconded by Donna. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
And
Any
I'll
opposed?
also
Motion carries
third, the increase
7-0.
in enrollment amount of 111,000 and change.
Motion made by Ken,
Second that.
seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next is the bond refinancing.
So on your table in front of you is, I'm looking at that isn't the 2 pieces on our agenda are what needs to be acted on, not what's up there. Okay? On your table tonight, you'll see the results of the bond refinancing we're doing. It's a small, we had 5 bidders. Many of them were local Iowa banks. And the lowest bid was Nuana.
I actually Googled it, I'm like, is there a town?
No, it's-
Northeast Iowa.
Is that where it's at?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just Googled it.
So, but savings of about just under $250,000. You know, we're not gonna get any of the millions anymore. I think we've saved all we can. This does, when you tally everything up since 2016, we are over $8 million in savings from, as we look at all the different bond stuff. So the two pieces in there that we need to approve the resolution directing the sale and then the redemption of the outstanding bonds to move forward to save our $250,000
Where is that wording, Jonah?
on the agenda itself. So look under.
So I move approval of the engagement letter for Piper.
Actually, I think your cover page didn't get updated, maybe.
I don't know, so you're not looking at the cover sheet.
So-
Oh,
Look at this.
look at,
I don't know why you didn't get.
So resolution directing the sale and resolution authorizing the redemption.
oh, you mean that thing, okay. Yes, I'll move approval of that. Directing this, okay, I move approval of the resolution directing the sale?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
It's on the separate tab, okay,
Nuana.
yeah, okay.
I second it.
Motion made by Carolyn, seconded by Lori. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
And because I did such a good job, I'm gonna move approval for the resolution authorizing the redemption of outstanding school infrastructure, sales, services, and use tax revenue refunding bond series 2017, and directing notice be given.
What's on that one?
Yeah, that one's better. Helping me
Motion
out.
made by Carolyn,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay.
So how do you
Facility-
amend like the agenda? Is it just noted somehow?
Well, the agenda is, if the agenda is correct,
Okay.
the notes were wrong. I don't know
Okay.
why they did that, because all the information is correct in
Yeah.
there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Facilities, you guys did not meet?
We didn't meet, we were working on getting, I can give you a verbal update, I think I shared this maybe in a board update too. Our main facilities work is trying to line up architects for presentations for the board. And we have 2 secured with a meeting on a 3rd tomorrow, I believe. So if you can make it November 30th, that would be great for a special meeting / work session, presentations from
November what?
November 30th. That's the Monday after our next regular meeting.
After
And
Thanksgiving.
What time's it gonna start?
5:30 is the plan. And the plan will be to give each firm an hour. And, we talked about, we understand there'll be some presentation, help the board understand, know who you are, but also time for question and answer with each group. And
Is that
then-
all we'll be covering then? It's
Yeah,
just that?
that one item that night, so we can predict pretty much that's gonna be a 3-hour deal for you. And we won't have action that night because we'll have another facilities committee meeting then to kind of talk through what you saw that night. But then there potentially could be board action December 14th, as you pick a group that you're comfortable with.
It's important that we get the names before that November 30th, because I know on this thing, it's good to have it. You can look at their websites, you
Yeah.
can see what schools they've done,
Absolutely.
see if you know anybody at those places, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, and we're still finalizing that, but I'll get that to you soon.
Next is Board Policy Committee report.
Yeah, fewer number of policies this time because we were wrapping up that 710. You'll see 2 that are kind of out of sequence there, and that's just because they were timely things that we've been talking about dealing with. But Ken or Ben, I don't know if you want to say anything about
First
this.
one is,
Public participation.
Comment.
yeah, we've talked about that, and that's one that we've had, and really the only change really in there, we talked about some, and actually a lot of things that I talked about we didn't put in there. The big one is there's limiting people that come to talk to 5 minutes, each person. Not limiting the amount of people that come, not limiting the amount of time that we're gonna spend on it. Still be a lot. It's just at each presentation, which is common to many, many places, to the 5 minutes, which gives our president the obligation to kind of say something if they try and go over that, as we go. But the rest is, there's some change of words, but that's basically the thing that changed in that one.
I think 2 notes in there. It could go longer than 5 minutes if needed, but if needed, president's approval.
Yeah.
And, district parking lots.
Yeah, we just, this was an existing policy, and it actually wasn't up to be done yet, but we were talking with our school resource officer and our county attorney. The parking lots have been a hangout place. It's kind of been something we've been trying to address here pretty stringently for a couple of years. We did add some cameras, better cameras out there, which has helped a little bit. But what we heard from law enforcement, the county attorney, was if there was a little bit more explicit language, which is that last sentence in bold that was added, students who loiter in district parking lots and or engage in inappropriate behaviors shall be subject to trespass or other legal charges. Just kind of explicitly puts people on notice and gives law enforcement a little more license to enforce that.
Is there signage in the parking lots indicating that?
That they're under surveillance, there is. Yep.
And then also, is there anything mentioning the
loitering or trespassing.
I'm not sure there is signage with that, I don't think so, but I think that should be addressed in student handbook, for sure, but there could be additional signage.
I think we need to put signage, because I know after a football drive, the boys all sit up there and talk and just kind of decompress, or whatever you want to call it.
I hope they don't decompose.
But I mean, I've been up there and they've been there an hour after the game's over, and they're just sitting and talking, because I went up and talked to them. So if you're gonna do that, there needs to be signage up there so these kids know, because
Yeah, and
they
that's
hang out
not,
at that middle school after a game for
right.
just talking, or parents bring food.
You know, that's
I mean,
honest, that's not the kind of behavior we're concerned with.
I know, but I
obviously.
mean, if, I'm just thinking if somebody'd say, hey, will you let the football boys do it?
Well, and this would be the kind of thing where, again, I've not
Be
been
more
in all these conversations,
Okay.
but yeah, mischief making, leaving trash out there, engaged in illegal activity.
So it'll be more of that.
And if they are just truly hanging out and being a nuisance or noise or whatever, then I think our school resource officer would probably give them a warning. I don't think the intent at all is to go out and just start ticketing people for trespassing. But I can talk to the high school administration, SRO, if they think additional signage on that point too would be helpful, we can sure do it.
Well, I know he's been down there even talking after the game, so if.
Yeah, I know that's not the situation he's concerned with,
Okay.
but we've had different concerns at the high school lot in terms of reckless driving, leaving trash out there, and some more extreme
Yeah.
behaviors that just don't need to happen in school.
Doing donuts
So,
in the parking lot of snow.
yeah, well, I think that was Mr. Keller, but,
You know, Officer Keller.
so,
Teaching your kids how to drive in the snow.
Yeah. School parking lot for teaching your kids how to drive.
Yeah.
It's a good place.
I don't know, anything else, any of those others, guys, that,
No, just updating the wording, and
yeah,
a lot of what the change comes from recommendations from IASB, as they review the master policy, or to go over with them and see if it's appropriate for us, and as we do it.
and we did, I guess the other one that we did update was that regulation 711.2, is we're bringing a whole bunch of cameras online. I did talk to ISB about that. Would we want a separate policy? Would we want to put it with our bus cameras? And so she recommended, the ISB lawyer recommended putting the two together there, and that's what you have. The last-
I know Rob started to say something to Ray about the security cameras when they're going up, but we didn't finish that conversation, I don't think.
Yeah. It was, the start date was,
They actually started working on that yesterday.
And you were hoping to be done by January.
Or, I'm not sorry, yesterday, today. Today's
Yeah, I
Monday.
was just thinking,
That's
wow, you
today.
got a minute on Sunday.
Sorry, today.
Yeah, okay.
And they are looking to be done with that still by the end of the calendar year.
Oh, the calendar.
So hopefully that holds true. That seems.
Art, you've been through?
Yep.
I moved approval of the first reading, the policies covered.
motion made by Ken to approve the first reading,
Second.
seconded by Lori. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Board calendar,
It does not reflect November 30th, but please put that on your calendars.
I will not be at finance on the 17th. At 7 a.m., believe it or not. Yeah.
and I won't be at technology. 26th.
Yeah.
I won't be there the 22nd. I'll be in Florida, I hope. Barring COVID, but.
December. Okay, anybody else on that? All right, next board agenda. We didn't do anything with that 5A there on the board agenda. Is that something different because of how far in the hole we were? These last.
Oh, this is what, typically we do this time of year, but we try to get, with the childcare rates, we try to get those out before the end of the year for parents that need to make a flex.
We just had to kind of eat the loss that we had last.
Right
past year.
now, we shared those funds that we got, the COVID funds, between food service, childcare, and the general fund, so.
Are we gonna build, that next one, are we gonna be able to have the things Sue asked for, the medical
Oh, yeah.
paper, can we have
Yeah,
that
Yep,
next?
I'll put that in the return to learn portion, just so you have to
I
look
mean,
at
just
it.
so we see what
Yeah,
it says.
absolutely.
So do you think we'll get another COVID thing to spread out with where we're hurting, where we've got, having to use COVID?
That's federal money. They are talking about another COVID stimulus package. And if they do, if the Senate and House agree, I think very likely there'll be a school portion to it. I can let you know if I hear more. One of the Iowa Association of School Board people, Phil Benary, he does update superintendents on what's happening at the federal level. I haven't heard anything concrete yet, but I think now that, well, I was gonna say the election's over, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I think they're talking again, so.
So we could have some more additional money to spread the
Good.
love.
I'll move to adjourn.
Not bad. Totally stole it.
Second,
Seconded by Carolyn. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.